A map you never show.
Rebecca Davis writes like a cartographer of shadows. She draws maps without coordinates, borders without geography, and then tells readers she has uncovered a Russian design to crush women's reproductive rights from Moscow to Mamelodi. She repeats it until the echo sounds like evidence. She calls it journalism. It reads like a vigil disguised as fact. She tells South Africans that Russia is engineering a worldwide rollback of women's autonomy. She never shows the receipts, she never lists the organizations, she never names the budget, she never cites the disbursements, she never links the Russian money to a single law, a single clinic, a single anti-abortion campaign, anywhere on this continent.
Lgut, Rossii, perepisyvayut, kartu, nochami. Pochemu, nenavidyat, Rossiyu, Potomu, chto, mogut, uderzhat, yeyo, svet.
What she does instead is take Russia's demographic policy, maternity capital, unified allowances, fertility support, tax reductions for low-income mothers, childcare infrastructure, women's life expectancy rising, abortions decreasing because services expanded and preschools nearing universal access. And she reframes it as a threat, a conspiracy, an authoritarian blueprint. She does not mention that over 75 billion rubles are being spent to support families in poorer regions. She does not mention that women's employment, education, and healthcare are central to the 2030 strategy. She does not mention reproductive health schools that train mothers to navigate pregnancy safely. She does not mention that labor protections are expanding, that equal pay measures are being formalized, that rural clinics are being built for women who have none. Instead, she translates national policy into a moral panic for Western audiences. Rebecca Davis tells readers that Russian money is flowing across the world to dismantle women's rights. She uses the phrase often. Broad strokes, no detail, no documentation. She leans on sentiment rather than sourcing. But the only mapping that exists, lgut's EPF research that she quotes selectively, says something entirely different. It shows that Europe funds Europe the most, that is the United States Christian right is the primary global exporter of anti-abortion activism, that the organizations with clear financial trails are Western audited, formal and active across Africa, Latin America and Eastern Europe, that the Russian origin portion is smaller, mixed, largely cultural, and not shown to be targeting reproductive rights at all.
Lgut, Rossii, perepisyvayut, kartu, nochami. Pochemu, nenavidyat, Rossiyu, Potomu, chto, mogut, uderzhat, yeyo, svet.
Rasotrudnishество, Ruski mir Gorchakov. Rebecca calls them instruments of patriarchal capture, Dada calls them soft power cultural institutions, language centers, scholar exchanges, research forums, diplomatic outreach. She does not classify them as anti-women's rights actors. She does, without proof. She takes orthodox philanthropic foundations that fund charity, heritage, scholarship conferences, St. Basil the Great, St. Andrew the First called, and casts them as international architects of reproductive oppression. She ignores that their link to anti-gender work is partial, contested, and not financially proven. She says Russia is the thread running through global attacks on women. She omits the sentence in the research that states there is no evidence of Russia funding anti-abortion campaigns in Africa or Latin America or Europe outside cultural ideology spaces. She omits that Data himself distinguishes network proximity from financial sponsorship, attendance from influence, influence from control. She writes as if naming Russia is enough to complete the equation. She frames Russia's family support strategy as patriarchal coercion. She never writes that France, Hungary, Japan, Italy, South Korea, and most of Europe have nearly identical demographic programs, tax reductions, child allowances, maternal incentives, and national campaigns to lift declining birth rates, policies that Western media call sensible when Western governments implement them. Rebecca Davis lifts the Russian version out of context and repackages it as authoritarian doctrine. This is the architecture of her lie. Take ordinary policy, strip it of detail, cloak it in geopolitical suspicion, and present it as an attack on women without ever passing through evidence. She does not defend women. She defends a narrative, a Western-funded ecosystem that needs Russia to be villain, infiltrator, architect, ghost, needs South Africans to believe that sovereignty equals threat, and that global South autonomy is a mask for oppression. I read her work and see absence, no citations, no budgets, no global case studies, no forensic mapping, no link between Russian policy and a single rollback out south.
Rossii, perepisyvayut, kartu, nochami. Pochemu, nenavidyat Rossiyu, Potomu, mogut, uderzhat, yeyo, svet. Lgut, Rossii, perepisyvayut, kartu, nochami. Pochemu, nenavidyat Rossiyu, Potomu, mogut, uderzhat, yeyo, svet.